bit about, yeah, so who am I? Josh Kutrick. I work for the Canadian Space Agency as an astronaut. I say that I'm a new astronaut. I was hired in 2017. I was selected. I tried out for them in 2009, didn't make it, tried out again in 2016-17. I went through a year, it's like a year-long selection process of just being poked and prodded and tested in all kinds of unimaginable ways. And for some reason, at the end, I was selected with Jenny. So we moved to Houston. We've spent about 7 years now essentially training and doing some technical work for NASA. And then a couple years ago, I entered into the next phase, which I'm in right now, and that is specifically training to go fly Canada's next long duration space flight. So this is a trip to the ISS that we think is going to launch next year in 2026. And it's going to be about between a 6 and an 8 month stay on the ISS for Canada, basically doing two main jobs. To sum it up simply, I'm training to be the station expert, so the person who runs the station, fixes it, flies it, if you will. It's an immensely complicated machine. It takes years and years and years, which is what I've been up to get to the point where you're able to do that. But then the second part of our job there as one of these astronauts is science. I'm not a scientist. My background is mostly in operations. I was a fighter pilot and then a test pilot. We were talking earlier, one of the things I used to do was test military systems against GPS jamming, just to give you some context. However, on the space station, I will be doing a lot of science for researchers from all over the world and many from Canada. We do stuff there that we can't actually do on Earth. We need the microgravity environment. Some of it's related to like spaceflight and the next steps we're trying to take with the moon and eventually someday Mars. A lot of it's not related to spaceflight. A lot of it's related to medicine and problems that we're just trying to solve here on Earth for these principal investigators, again, from all over the place. So I spent a lot of time studying, a lot of time learning, practicing to operate the space station, and then a lot of time learning, traveling around the world to do this science that we'll do as part of this mission. I think maybe the last thing I would throw in, just to try to give you some appreciation for it, I do like to make the point that what we do in Canada right now with space is very, very special. We've always had a strong legacy in space. I think we have a bright future if we keep doing what we're doing, but it's not something we should take for granted. You know, space flight is still really hard, and if you would be hard pressed, I think, to find another country in the world of our size, our GDP, our relative industrial base that does the kind of scientific work and exploration in space that Canada does. We're very, very lucky. And it's not a coincidence that we get these benefits, that we get invited to participate in missions like the one I'm going out to fly. It's the result of Canada. And at some level, if you follow that trickle down, it's the result of the kind of stuff that you're doing right here in Calian, which is building niche technology that is needed by people who are trying to operate in space all over the world. We do that with a number of items. I'm always talking about robotics, but this is the same thing. And so it does all come down to that. 2026 is a big year for us. We're flying this long duration flight. We're also flying, I'm sure you know, Artemis 2. And that's also a very telling example. That mission is the first return to the moon of humans since Apollo. There's 4 people. They're going to go farther and faster than anyone in the history of humans have gone, launching in February. But again, to that point about Canada, there's a Canadian. And so from the whole world, it's still remarkable to me to think that NASA invited one country to go on that, and it's ours. And it's not a transaction. We're not paying for these flights. We don't pay for the flight I'm training for. We are invited to do them, to participate, because of what we contribute technology-wise to space exploration, to NASA, to some of our other partners. So you all are a part of that. I want you to know that. Thank you for the awesome tour. This has been a very inspiring morning, and maybe with that, I'll just turn it over. If you have anything you'd like to ask me about space agency, the work we're doing there, or the missions we're getting ready to fly, or anything else, please feel free.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I don't.
I know you did give a bit of background here, but Canada has a long history in space exploration, from the Canadarms robotics to, now deep space with your mission. From your perspective, what is the most exciting thing and role that you see Canada playing?
I mean, Canada enabled what we've done in low Earth orbit, we being like the world. So, and it's pretty amazing. We don't think of that now because the space station has been in orbit for over 2 decades, but that's really hard. I mean, that thing was assembled across hundreds of flights of components. Every component has been moving at 28 some thousand kilometers an hour since it went up there. That's the environment. But Canada enabled that. I mean, we built the robotic systems. Everybody says Canadarm, but there's a lot of robotic systems that Canada contributed, technology that only Canada has, and that's the technology that built the space station and still essentially runs the space station. So we were right in the critical path of that, making space station happen, all the discoveries, learning how to keep humans alive in space for years like we do now. That all came over the last 2 decades, and in part it was because of Canada. So the answer to your question is I want us to keep doing that. And I think with the moon, which is the next step, we're setting up, we're in a good position to keep doing that, but that's what I want. That's what I would be most excited about. I want us to be on the critical path for sustained human scientific work, exploration on the surface of the moon. And that's what NASA is aiming for. This is happening. I mean, this hardware is built, it's being built, it's in Houston, I see it every day. I want Canada to be a part of that. And so things that come to mind, some of them we've done already. We're committed to building Gateway and the robotic system that will assemble that space station in orbit around the moon. Other things we're just starting to talk about, but I dream about a day where we do them. So things like power supplies on the surface of the moon, potentially nuclear power supplies, things like that that will enable this next era of exploration. You have an example right here, and I've been asking, I understand you don't know exactly where all your antennas go, but I would be willing to bet some of them are going to be going to the moon in the next few years. And that's another field. I mean, navigation on the moon and how that's going to happen. It would be wonderful if Canada somehow inserted itself there so that it was a Canadian company, Canadian technology that designed, built every antenna used for surface navigation in support of these NASA missions. I want us to be on the critical path. That's a long answer to your question.
Thanks.
Hi, Blue Jays. I'm tired today because of the last 2 nights.
I have a question. I work in the QA department, and we're sending more and more antennas to space. What are like some common challenges, problems that you guys encounter with communications and technology?
I mean, jamming is one that seems to be increasingly relevant. I think if I just think about ISS ops, we're still challenged, less so now, but just by coverage. So that is the amount, whatever system you're talking about, the amount of satellites that happen to be in view and the coverage that you can rely on for connectivity across all of ops. So basically the amount of infrastructure we're putting into space to communicate with. Space debris is something we are very challenged with on a day-to-day basis at NASA. It's not a direct challenge to your satellites or to your antennas, but it certainly is as if a satellite carrying one of your antennas is struck by it. So yeah, debris coverage. Radiation, we also have issues with almost daily in terms of day-to-day operations in low Earth orbit with the space station, some of our other vehicles, upset events, software resets from radiation. So I'll give you some examples. Anything else?
Sure. Your long flight that's coming up shortly, do you think that's going to sort of refocus Canada in the global spectrum? Sorry, it's a two-pronged question, but this is part one. Do you think that's going to, you were talking about you'd like to see these things in the future. Is this activity that we're doing that we're invited by NASA, do you think that's really going to help push that agenda a little bit further?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. That's part of the reason we're doing it. It's certainly going to bring, next year is certainly going to bring a lot of attention to Canada in space. Artemis 2 and this long duration flight. And I think that can only be a good thing. The more people think of Canada when it comes to thinking about space and exploration, the better. So absolutely.
Awesome. Second one, sorry Bob for that.
You're not.
Calian gig's not that tough. Are you hiring? Don't say it in front of everybody.
We would be lucky to have you. Oh, he ran away already. But this actually looks like a real wonderful place to work, honestly. So.
It is pretty perfect.
Yeah. Hey.
What are you most looking forward to about going to space next year?
Most looking forward to, I mean, there's a couple different answers to that. I've dreamt of going to space since I was 6 years old. So I just feel so darn lucky and privileged, and most looking forward to, I mean, the first 20 minutes being able to get out, unstrap, and look at Earth as a blue ball hanging in the blackness of space. That's at a very personal level the thing I'm most looking forward to. But to peel that onion back a little bit, I mean all the Canada stuff. So running Canadarm2 and doing the Canadian science that is hopefully going to be there with us. It feels really good to, of course, be able to go to space and accomplish a personal dream, but it feels really good in a much wider sense to be able to go there as a Canadian and to advance all of this Canadian science. I mean, it's wonderful. It's all a good news story. We don't do it enough. Our last long flight was launched in 2018, so it's quite a while ago. And I'm looking forward to sort of reigniting that story. Hello?
I'm guessing that you met other astronauts?
Yeah, a lot. I work in about 50 of them, yeah.
So the question that I had was, when the astronauts went to space and back, do you feel, or did they feel, that it really changed their perspective of the world, of civilization, of the human, or like of us? Or like, did it really change them, like their philosophy and their worldview, or, and if it did, how?
Yeah, I think it does. There's actually been some interesting, we deal with psychologists a lot in terms of just getting ready for the isolation and the mental challenges of what we're getting ready to go do. Some of those same people have studied what you're asking about in your question, and there's a word for it now, they call it the overview effect. But the basic answer, I think, is that yes, there is a documented change. Most of these folks will tell you it changed their views, and they'll end up, I have many good friends who've had this conversation with, they'll end up talking about two main things. The first is the fragility of the Earth and climate change, and being able to look at not the Earth as we see it here as this complex array of a million different natural systems, but just as this one thing, like this one marble that's hanging there, and all of civilization, humanity that's ever existed happened on it. And there's still, to this day, despite all of our advances, nowhere else to go, right? So the fragility of everything that we have on Earth, and the need to address some of the generational problems like climate change is something that every one of them ends up talking a lot about. The other one that they end up talking a lot about is just if I use their words, probably the silliness of some of the conflicts that we have going on. The silliness of this competition that we seem to be obsessed with on planet Earth, and our apparent inability to get past it sometimes and move on to collaboration. The space station right now, we don't talk about this that much, but just as an example for your question, I work hand in hand with Russians. I travel there, I train there, I speak Russian a little bit, had to learn it. And so that sort of refocuses you. I think to be on a space station going at 30,000 some kilometers an hour, looking back on Earth as a marble in space, and being in that environment, this high risk, high consequence, dangerous environment for 8 months, with people from all over the world, including those people, just as one example, makes you look back and just ask, like with complexity, what are we doing down here, and why haven't we been able to find solutions to some of these problems? Yeah, and that's, you know, to get a little bit philosophical, that's a pretty important reason for why we do spaceflight in the first place. We hope that that's what people see when they look at something like the space station, in addition to all the research and science and engineering we're doing, that they see a little bit of a beacon of hope for what can be, for what we can accomplish, you know, when we work hand in hand. I mean, we built this thing. It has to be, technology-wise, the most complicated thing humanity's ever made, and we made it hand in hand with people from all over the world, Canada, but with some people like from that country. So, yeah, makes you think about things.
Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming. I understand that there's kind of a phenomenon, I guess, like when you come back from space after being up there for so long, it takes a toll on your body and whatnot, like physiologically.
Yeah.
Is there anything that they do now where you can kind of prepare for when you come back, like when you're up in space, like,
Yeah.
like working out so that it lessens the effect?
Yeah, lots in that question. That is my day-to-day work right now, is dealing with that question. So being in space is very, very difficult for the human, and that's part of the reason why we've been working on the space station, is to try to solve these problems. 25 years ago, we didn't know how to put an astronaut in space for a year and a half. We do it now, and I have friends who've done it. We've gotten there because of all the science and things we've learned over the last 2.5 decades. But at the end of the day, it's very hard on the human body. It's one of the biggest challenges. When we look at a Mars mission, 2.5 years, the biggest challenges, we think, there's some to do with propulsion and that, but by far some of the biggest have to do with the human body. The radiation, the microgravity, the isolation, in an environment just like the space station now for just 8 months, takes a big, big toll. One of the simplest ways of thinking about it, I think, for non-medicine people like myself, is it takes a lot of the diseases, natural processes like aging, that many of us are going to end up suffering from here on Earth anyway. And in a tested, healthy specimen, like the astronaut, it just kickstarts these processes, and they all start to happen. They start to happen really fast, accelerated. So like a cardiovascular system in me might age, you know, several years, the equivalent of aging on Earth for every week that I'm in space. So we have to deal with that. It's very bad for me, actually. But for the same reason that I talked about those natural processes accelerating, it makes it very good for studying medicine. And that's part of the reason why we're able to do so much medical research there. Last thing I would tell you is we have gotten a lot better at this. So I spend a lot of time right now preparing, physically training, trying to get my body into a position where to handle this. On orbit, yeah, we work out, resistance training, running, biking, different things for this, between 2 and 3 hours every day. And then when we come back, most people are in pretty rough shape, like unable to get up and walk around. We go into about a 6-month rehabilitation period. But by and large, NASA has made a huge amount of progress here. And by the end of that multi-year process, you end those last 6 months after you land, most people, amazingly, are almost back to the spot they were physiologically when they left. But it's a big effort. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Josh, and again, thank you for joining us. So, what's in the future once the mission is successfully completed? You've got 6 months of rehabilitation. What do you hope you can do thereafter?
I mean, I am passionate about space, of course, but specifically about Canada in space, and that's probably come across. So I want to keep working with that. And I want to keep doing whatever I can do in Canada to get us more missions that are even more audacious. I want to help Canada stay where I think we are right now, but it is fragile. But right now we are on, as I say, the leading edge of human exploration. And that's fun for people like me who are in the mix of it, but it's also really important for our little country, and I want it to stay that way.